Welcome to section 20.1, part 4. This is the 201st session of the CISSP exam prep series. This part turns to maturity models, project scheduling, and the disciplines that keep changing software under control. In this session, we'll measure how organizations mature and how they govern change. We'll answer several questions. What principles guide agile at scale? How do maturity models chart the road from chaos to discipline? What tools help you schedule and size a project? How do change and configuration management keep production safe? And how do the modern DevOps and DevSecOps approaches fold everything together? Why does this matter beyond the exam? Because these frameworks are how leadership judges whether a software shop can be trusted with critical work. Imagine an insurer evaluating a vendor to build its claims platform. Knowing where that vendor sits on a maturity ladder and how tightly it controls changes tells you far more about risk than any sales pitch. These are the yardsticks you will use to hold both internal teams and outside partners to account. What principles guide agile at scale? The Scaled Agile framework rests on a set of core principles drawn from agile thinking, and together they steer how large organizations make decisions. They urge you to take an economic view of every choice and to apply systems thinking to the whole. They tell you to assume variability and keep options open, build incrementally with fast learning cycles, and base milestones on objective evaluation of working systems. They push you to make value flow without interruption, apply a steady cadence synchronized across domains, and unlock the intrinsic motivation of your knowledge workers. Finally, they ask you to decentralize decision-making and organize everything around value. Think of them as the shared rules of the road that let a huge convoy of teams drive in the same direction without constant collisions. How does the capability maturity model chart the road from chaos to discipline? This model holds that every software organization climbs through the same 5 stages in order, from disorganized effort toward mature, repeatable practice, on the premise that software quality follows process quality. At level 1, initial, hardworking people push ahead with little defined process. At level 2, repeatable, basic lifecycle management and organized code reuse appear. At level 3, defined, teams work from formal, documented, standardized processes. At level 4, managed, quantitative measures give a detailed grip on the process. And at level 5, optimizing, continuous improvement feeds lessons back to refine future work. A successor model integrates these once isolated processes rather than treating them separately. Note that the model itself does not address security, so weaving security in is on you. Think of it as a fitness ladder, climbing from random workouts to a measured, self-correcting regimen. What does the software assurance maturity model add? This open source model exists specifically to fold security into the development and maintenance process, and it lets an organization assess its own maturity. It divides the work into 5 business functions. Governance covers how you manage the process, including strategy, metrics, policy, compliance, and education. Design covers defining requirements and shaping the software, including threat modeling and security architecture. Implementation covers building and deploying components and handling their defects. Verification covers confirming that code meets both business and security requirements through assessment and testing. And operations covers keeping confidentiality, integrity, and availability intact after release through incident and environment management. Think of it as a security-focused report card with 5 subjects, each graded on how mature your practices are. What does the ideal model contribute? The ideal model organizes improvement into 5 phases that mirror the maturity mindset. Initiating lays out the business reasons for change, builds support, and sets up the groundwork. Diagnosing analyzes where the organization stands today and recommends broad changes. Establishing turns those broad recommendations into a specific action plan. Acting develops, tests, refines, and implements the actual solutions. And learning reviews whether the goals were met and proposes new actions to stay on course. Think of it as steering a ship. You set out, take your bearings, chart a route, sail it, and then check the stars to correct your heading for the next leg. What tools help you schedule and size a project? 2 classics show up here: A Gantt chart is a bar chart that maps tasks against time, showing how projects and schedules interrelate, which makes it ideal for coordinating work that shares the same people or resources. The program evaluation review technique, by contrast, helps you judge the size of a software product and gauge risk by combining the smallest likely size, the most likely size, and the largest likely size of each piece, while laying bare the dependencies between tasks. Together, they let managers plan timing, track progress, and schedule around bottlenecks. Think of a Gantt chart as the calendar view and the review technique as the estimate that tells you how big each block on that calendar really is. How does change management keep production safe? Once software is live, users will always want new features, bug fixes, and tweaks, so you manage those changes in an organized way and log them to a central repository for auditing and investigation. The process has 3 parts. Request control gives users a framework to ask for changes, while managers weigh costs and benefits and developers set priorities. Change control lets developers reproduce the reported situation, craft and test a fix in a controlled setting, document it, and limit its side effects on security. Release control approves the finished change for production, and its essential job is to confirm that any debugging code or backdoor added as a temporary aid gets stripped out before shipping. Think of it as an airlock. Nothing reaches the live environment until it passes through each sealed, checked stage. What does software configuration management control? Alongside change management, configuration management governs which versions of software run across the organization and formally tracks changes to that configuration. It has 4 components. Configuration identification documents the configuration of the covered software products throughout the organization. Configuration control ensures version changes follow the change control and configuration policies, allowing updates only from authorized sources. Configuration status accounting keeps formal records of every authorized change. And configuration audit periodically checks that the real production environment matches those records and that no unauthorized changes crept in. Think of it as an inventory system for software versions, one that not only records what should be running, but regularly verifies that reality agrees. How does the DevOps approach fold everything together? For years, software development, quality assurance, and operations sat in separate silos that often clashed, throwing problems over the fence and delaying releases. DevOps merges these 3 functions into one cooperative model, and its very name fuses development and operations to signal that they must work as one. Closely tied to agile, it slashes the time to develop, test, and deploy, so that organizations which once shipped major releases yearly can push code many times a day. Think of it as tearing down the walls between 3 departments so a single team owns a change from idea to production. How do DevSecOps and continuous delivery complete the picture? When code moves fast, security has to move just as fast. So many teams prefer the term DevSecOps to signal that security joins development and operations as an equal partner. This approach supports software-defined security, where controls are managed by code and drop straight into the pipeline. That pipeline is continuous integration and continuous delivery, a highly automated flow that ties together code repositories, configuration management, and the movement of code between development, testing, and production, letting some organizations roll out changes dozens or hundreds of times a day. Think of it as an automated assembly line where safety inspections are built into the conveyor itself, not tacked on at the end. So let's bring it together. Scaled Agile rests on core principles that align huge organizations around value and flow. Maturity models chart the climb from chaos to discipline, with the capability maturity model measuring process, the assurance model folding in security, and the ideal model guiding improvement. Gantt charts and the review technique schedule and size the work. Change and configuration management keep production trustworthy, and DevOps with DevSecOps merges development, security, and operations into one fast, automated pipeline. Master these, and you can measure and govern software work with confidence. The MCQs covering all the topics and concepts from this session are available on rucloud.com. Practice the chapter-specific MCQs before moving on to the next session. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, post a comment below or email us. I will see you in the next session.